New Year's week, baby. All right. I hope everybody had a great Christmas. I know we did.
Yes. Awesome.
Yes.
Can't complain. And now New Year's is this weekend. So I hope everybody's getting all of their positive thoughts in place for the new year. We are back here just to say Happy New Year. But as promised in the last episode, which if you didn't listen to it, please go back. But as promised, this is going to be part 2 of myself, Jenni Berman, talking with Amber Richardson. So we hope everybody has a great new year and enjoys part 2 of this podcast. Welcome back to the Berman Method Podcast, where we are focused on treating problems and not symptoms. I am Jenni Berman, physician assistant. And once again this week, if you weren't in attendance last week with our podcast, you should definitely go back. But I do not have Dr. Jake Berman here with me today. Instead, I have a wonderful, wonderful guest on the podcast, Amberlynn Richardson. And she was on last week. So if you did not listen, please go back. But real quick, just to kind of follow up with the Berman Method Podcast, we are focused on treating problems and not symptoms. So very focused on getting away from the typical conventional medicine and looking deeper into more functional medicine, physically, emotionally, psychologically, and chemically, looking at the blood balance, blood sugar control, reducing inflammation, gut health, really trying to figure out what is actually causing the problem and how can we look at this as a whole body experience rather than just writing the prescriptions, handing them out, and moving on with the day. So welcome to the Berman Method Podcast. Amberlynn Richardson is back with us today. She is the author of Seasonal Syncing, which we started talking about last episode, but we're going to keep that conversation going. So Amber, welcome back.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Amberlynn Richardson is a grateful mother, wife, author, life coach, and speaker. After a fulfilling career as an educator and public servant, which we talked a lot about last episode with her being a prior assistant principal, she transitioned her dream role, that of a full-time mother and entrepreneur. If you weren't there, we talked a lot about her personal life and what got her into being an author and how she utilized focusing and embracing the seasons of life that she was in to get where she's at now. She is passionate about helping others find peace and purpose through intentional living. She lives with her husband and 3 children and loves hiking, riding, and deep conversations with the people she loves. She is author of Seasonal Syncing, which is now available to you on Amazon to purchase, and such a wonderful, wonderful book for all individuals, but it talks a lot to women just figuring out the season of life that they're in and embracing the change, helping with controlling that stress response, that cortisol response that I talk about every single day and every week, it seems like, on this podcast. So here we are.
All right. I'm so glad to be here.
Do you want to give us, for those of us who haven't yet listened to last week, because they are going to go back and listen, you know it, but if they have not yet listened to last week, will you just give us a real brief synopsis of what we talked about with Seasonal Syncing, and just kind of the basis of the book that can help listeners understand what we're getting back into today?
Sure. So it looks at the different phases and experiences in our lives, similar to the seasons that we see cycle through in nature. And so we've got fall, the season of transformation, winter, the season of sanctuary, spring, the season of hope, and summer, the season of joy. And how oftentimes we kind of resist moving through these seasons. And so the idea behind seasonal syncing is if we can identify what season of life we're in and sync up with that, and then kind of lean into critical practices that are aligned with that particular season, it can help us to just improve our experience of harmony and wholeness in our lives. It can expedite healing and really connect us with our own health journeys, both physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. So that's kind of the purpose and idea behind it.
Yes. And we talked a lot about just using this as a resource to work through these phases of life, in addition to maybe external resources that we need with therapy, talk therapy, physical therapy. There's a lot of different areas. And we really talked about the most challenging phase that we we try to see, we almost resist, right? We talked a lot about resisting that phase that we're in, and certainly the season of fall where we really feel like we're falling back and we're fighting against what we don't want to believe or see, for instance. And we really have to practice reflection, release, and gratitude in that time period to just work through that most difficult, challenging coping mechanism to be able to shift into the more positive season, which in the end will be the summer, the season of joy. But obviously I skipped 2 seasons in there, winter and spring too. So just certainly go back and listen, please. She explains those different seasons, but I'm going to jump right back in and say you emphasize a lot throughout this book, rest and reflection. And this is an essential season that we need to practice, and probably the most challenging for me personally. I had somebody ask me just 2 days ago, she was like, so how do you manage these 3 kids? She was at my house. How do you manage these 3 kids and a business and still work out in the mornings and eat right? And I was like, well, I guess my most honest answer is I don't sleep enough. Yeah. And I talk about all the time the need for sleep and recovery and the cells that we generate when we're sleeping. So that's an area that I'm still working towards.
Yeah. And so I think, in going back to the seasons, so I identify, the 4 seasons, and then within each season, I identify 3 critical practices that I think really align with the essence of what that season is all about. And rest is one of the critical practices of the season of winter, which is the season of sanctuary. And like you, I have had a extremely complicated relationship with rest. Mm-hmm. I kind of had, for most of my life, the majority of my life, I kind of held that I'll rest when I'm dead mentality, and just kind of felt like I perceived rest as either lazy or unproductive at worst, and or an undeserved privilege in other ways. So it was just, I had this very complicated understanding of what rest was. And, it wasn't until, again, that I was kind of going on my own personal health journey and really digging into what is required of me to for my body to get rest, and what does that mean and what does that do for me. And then I started doing my own digging in my research. I was like, oh my gosh. So I think women traditionally, we have this very complicated relationship with rest because there's all these things expected of us: working out, taking care of our kids, doing the midnight feedings, getting to work, doing all these things. And so it's how do we lean into that? And yet when you learn about what the lack of sleep does to us on a cellular biological level, it's how could we not sleep? And so I'm trying to go back through and see. So there's even from all the research that shows losing sleep is not only detrimental, it heightens your immune response. It gets they show actual measurable brain damage to not having sleep and rest. Your insulin goes into whack, your insulin resistance, your metabolic function, your gut microbiome. Everything in your body just starts to break down for lack of rest. And so I learned that this I'll rest when I'm dead mentality. It was I was actually expediting myself to an early grave by not resting. And so I think it's really tricky though to just kind of come out and say to somebody like you, Jenni, who is I'm doing all the things, where do I fit rest in? It's how do I make that shift? So one of the things that I talk about a lot in the book is doing these micro changes. And so I used rest as an example, and I'm okay, so if we let's say that we're going to look at the quantity of sleep that we're getting. And if we add just 3 more minutes a day over the course of 30 days, by the end of that time, you'll have added an extra 90 minutes of sleep time. So it's it's a way of kind of validating, okay, I'm committed to this. This is but this is a big stretch. So instead of going and saying, I'm going to go to bed an hour and a half earlier, you just say, okay, tonight my bedtime is going to be 3 minutes earlier, then the next night 3 minutes earlier than that. And so it's about kind of acknowledging the value and finding the value in it, and then finding a way to bridge the gap in a way that feels doable and manageable.
Right. Absolutely. And she's 1000% correct in the fact that, and I've said this before on the podcast, that we can generate up to 330 billion healthy cells at night when we're actually getting adequate rest and recovery. Now, adequate is the term, right? Like it can't be 6 hours of sleep on a daily basis, but also 9 hours of poor quality sleep is not helping the situation either. And absolutely, there's other areas that come into this cellular regeneration, but without it, we are increasing the oxidative stress inside of us. So that chronic stress response that leads to inflammation and the insulin resistance and the brain fog and dementia and Alzheimer's, all the things that are associated, poor gut health, 100%. So you're totally right. And I love that thought process of the micro changes. Like, let's just do one thing at a time. Start with 3 minutes. And it's the same thing with implementing any kind of change in our life, whether it's getting into exercise. I tell my patients all the time, you don't need to start with 90 minutes of a boot camp. Like, let's just start with go outside, walk 5 minutes down the street, turn around, walk 5 minutes back, sit back down at your desk and get back to work. Like that is a starting point. Then 3 hours later, do that again. Get outside, walk 5 minutes, walk 5 minutes back. Take your phone with you if you have to. Like, just start. And if you do that over 3 times in a day, there's your 30 minutes of activity that you've already started to implement. So part of this, and not that that goes with rest and recovery, right? But that's definitely part of this micro change to metabolic health. And a lot of times that even that type of activity is a rest and recovery for our brain. It's sunlight, it's activity, it's oxygen to our cells, which is part of this reducing oxidative stress and helping with the mental capacity. And maybe for others, the rest and recovery is meditation or yoga or Pilates, just spending some time on ourself.
Yeah. And I think that that's part of it too. So like, yes, in this particular sense, we were talking about like rest as in like sleep.
Yeah.
But rest can also manifest itself in different ways. Like you said, it's anything that's kind of restorative, that taps into, like we were talking about last week about the parasympathetic nervous system. Like, how do we tap into activating that kind of allows our bodies to rest, as opposed to being in this heightened sympathetic nervous system state? And so, there's so many ways that we can do that. But I think, whether they can be simple things, like you said, like going out for a walk. It could be working on some deep breathing. It could be doing stretching. It could be doing, any kind of gratitude practice. It could be reflecting. And I think like at nothing else, like let's say that you don't get this book, that you just are needing something like immediate. Like, how do I tap into that? Like, get out in nature. Mm-hmm. Even if you just sit and listen and feel the fresh air, breathe in the fresh air, take your shoes off and put your feet in the ground, sit on the ground, walk without your phone, like just little things. Like, if you can connect with nature, your body is like in a rhythm with that around it, and that will automatically tap into that parasympathetic nervous system.
I think that's amazing. I just said that to a client just last week, where I was like, okay, we are not in a good place right now mentally, right? We're struggling mentally. We have a ton of stressors happening to us. Like, she's in the fall phase, and I'm kind of like, now I'm going to tell her, like, go buy this book. You need to start implementing these seasons of life. But like, okay, let's embrace it. We're in this situation. Getting up and getting out of bed and going to the gym and working out for an hour like you used to do is not the season of life we're in right now. Yeah. So instead, I want you to still get up when that alarm goes off. And because you're not wanting to get out of bed and we're in this struggle right now, just move yourself outside on your porch and just sit.
Yes.
Like, we don't have to get outside and walk. We don't have to get to the gym. Just get out of bed and go sit in the chair. Fall back asleep in the chair outside. Fine. Yeah. But at least get yourself outside to start your day for the first 30 minutes that you would have spent doing some sort of exercise. Like, let's just start. And the getting outside, getting the sunlight, putting your feet on the ground, like, has such a profound effect for that cortisol response and getting us in this situation of calming that nervous system down and really helping with the promotion of that rest and recovery period that we speak of.
Yeah. And I think really, again, like, this seasonal syncing framework is just a way to it. And I think for women, it's that permission. It's that permission to say, you know what, I'm not in a season where I'm going to wake up and go off to do my boot camp workout that I normally do, even though that's something that I love. Like, I'm just not in that season. So it's a permission. It's an allowance. And then what's, like, so incredible are the things that so many studies, so much research, like, the things that are most impactful to your health: getting out in nature, breath work, sunshine, hydration, fuel. Like, all of this is available to you for free, save for food. All of it's available to everyone at any time without restriction. It's just a matter of choosing to engage in that thing. And so I think if we can continue to work on how do we bridge that gap between what we feel like our expectations are of ourselves and of our life, how do we bridge that gap? And I think if we can do that and allow for these things to happen and realize that we are in control of our choices and how we choose to respond to things, like, the quality of our life experience, the harmony that we feel in our lives, our engagement, our connection to ourself and others in the world around us, everything enhances.
Right. I 100% agree with you. And then working through those different phases that we keep talking about with moving from fall to winter and using the critical practices to then go into spring and into summer, where we can actually embrace the joy that we've worked through. And these seasons don't have to take a full year, right? Like, we think a season is 4 seasons, that's a whole year of work, but we could certainly move through these seasons at a quicker pace if we're utilizing the right support to get through them and actually embracing them.
Yes. So that is actually it. Exactly. So in the book, in the beginning of each chapter, I kind of I define our terms so that we're all on, like, the same idea. And so for season, one of the defining factors or characteristic is it's an undefined time period. So a season does not have to last 3 months, a year, it's undefined. So it depends on how you are engaging with it. And my belief and my experience with this framework is that the longer you resist, the longer it's going to take you to actually get through that season. But if you can lean into these critical practices and, kind of align and stop resisting where you're at and really lean into those things, then you're going to move through that season a lot quicker because you're supporting and nourishing your body through that season. And so then you get through to the other side. And I'd like to say too, like, while some seasons don't feel as maybe exciting, like a season of transformation, that could be a job loss or a new job. Like it could be good, exciting experience. It could be the birth of a child, and it could be a loss of a loved one. Like, these seasons of transformation, like, in my opinion, every single season has value and beauty and good and adds something important to our lives, just like we see in the world around us. So I think it's just allowing for that value, like, to lean into that value and to allow that to impact your life, so that way you can move through it for sure.
Yes, I think it's just so valuable hearing that and understanding that, like, this is part of what we are working through, no matter what the different season is. We're constantly, this kind of reminds me going back when Jake and I first had Stella. So we had Stella, NICU baby, preemie, all the things happening, and finally break her out of the NICU. A couple weeks in, we went to dinner with one of a couple. Very good friends. He was actually Jake's physician as Jake grew up. Like, he was his family doctor as he grew up. But we went out to dinner with them, and he said, I want you to remember one thing about kids. And as you raise the kids, it's all a phase. He's like, it's 2 weeks. It's going to be good for 2 weeks. It's going to be bad for 2 weeks. You're going to want to rip your hair out for 2 weeks. You're going to love it for 2 weeks. Like whatever the phase is, it's 2 weeks and it's going to change. You're going to get through it and it's going to change. And it's like, I have lived by that. Every time the kids are in a phase where I'm like, what the heck? Like, is there something wrong with my parenting, or like, what is going on? It's a phase. It may be longer than 2 weeks.
Right.
It's a phase, and we are going to work through it and we're going to get through it. We have to embrace what's going on and figure out what is the best way to navigate this situation. And we have to look at that with ourselves too. And whatever life situation is happening. So I love now being able to compare it to a season and saying, okay, what is this season? What is growing outside? And how are we navigating that growth? And what can we do next?
Yeah, I love that.
Very good. So finally, what I want to know is, after women read this, because we kind of talked about like, what can I do here and now until I get this book in my hand and really get through it and reading it. We talked about the box breathing, the grounding, the sunlight, understanding just gratitude, saying gratitude. Jake and I actually talked about that on a podcast not too long ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, and said, like, we should be starting every single day with 3 points of gratitude. Every single day, because the amount of serotonin and endorphins that releases just speaking gratitude and positivity is a game changer. The hydration, the sleep, the energy into our body, our fuel, right? We have to pay for food, but we can pay for the right food, are just things that we can take away right here, right now, to help with that kind of stress response, no matter what season we're going through. But how do you hope that women feel after reading this?
So I think a couple of things. I think one of the things that that I want them to experience is, I think an interesting question kind of exploring this whole thing is, the critical practices that I share in this book, none of them are like new and earth-shattering. It's not like you're going to read something and be like, oh, I never heard of that or thought it would be good for me. I think it's just a matter of like timing it within the proper season and understanding that something like gratitude, I don't think many people would argue that that isn't a great thing to have, but like, why is it a good practice? And if we can understand like the neuroscience behind like what that does to your body, the release of the serotonins, that it activates your limbic system, and that then it's supporting your deep sleep, which then improves your vitality, which is then impacting your cardiac, immune, and metabolic health. And so all these things. So I think it's and those are all pieces of the book that kind of like help fortify, like, this is why this practice is really good for you, especially right now. So I think one thing I want women or readers to walk away with this book is like that aha, like why this is of value, why this season is of value, why these practices are of value, and why like their alignment in the timing of when you experience them, why that's so supportive and nourishing to you. And I think right now I have a launch team where these are women that have had early access to the book and are reading the book, so that way they can kind of help promote the book when it comes out and give an honest review. And one of the women reached out to me that's read the book, and she was like, I feel like this book was written to me and for me, and that it wasn't just words, it felt like a hug. And I was like, that is literally the best compliment I could ever get from this book. Is so I hope that the readers, as they read it, I hope they feel seen, and I hope they feel validated in their experience, and then I hope that they feel hugged and then empowered to like lean into their season, lean into their lives, to take control of their experience. And I just hope that they're able to walk away with something that's like truly valuable and impactful in a positive way in their lives.
Absolutely. And I feel the same way. I've kind of talked about it a few times where I'm like, I feel like you're talking to me. I need to really embrace this. But it truly is amazing. And 100%, that's my entire goal too. And a lot of the feedback that we get at this practice with Berman Health Club now, not just Berman Health and Wellness, but Berman Health Club, is that people actually feel seen and heard and validated. right? Like there's
Yeah.
so many people just feel dismissed by the medical society now. Like, okay, you're in, you're out. We got to move on to the next one. And, we've talked about the reasons why that happens with insurance-based medicine, but just feeling heard, like understand what's going on and dig deeper into the inside. And this is 100% a valuable piece to it. So Amberlynn Richardson, author of Seasonal Sinking, which is now out on Amazon. We are going to have the link to the book within our show notes so that you can go online and purchase your copy to show up at your doorstep and really work through this book to improve how you're managing the seasons of your life. So Amber, thank you again so much for joining our podcast and talking to all the listeners. This is not just for women. It really is for all listeners and all readers. So thank you so much for being here today.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute joy and privilege to be able to be here with you and your listeners. And I wish you all well.
Yes, thank you. And again, if you did not yet listen to episode 1 of this 2-part podcast just last week, please go back and listen to it. Share this episode along with part 1 of it to everyone that you know that could really benefit, which is everybody. Everybody could benefit from this. Go online and buy your book. Please comment or send us a message if you have any questions. So thank you again, Amber, and ciao for now to our listeners.
Bye.